Joy to the World, a perennial Christmas message, and this year, the title of the 2024 Doctor Who Christmas special. As we wrap up 2024 and head into 2025, join us for this, the second of our two-part look at the 2024 Doctor Who episodes, joined once again by our guest Dr Aiden Buckland. If you haven't listened to our episode-by-episode review of the full season, please check out the previous episode in the podcast, but if you're willing to check out the Christmas special, stay tuned. We're going to get right into it on this episode of the Implausipod. And welcome back, Dr. Buckland. Joy to the world.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always great to talk about the Christmas specials.
Yeah, and we had, again, a Christmas special that I just got through watching, and I think this is my introduction, or my second year running, and you say once is, a starting point, but after that it becomes tradition. So we now have our tradition of running with Christmas episodes, and I really enjoyed this one. There was a lot going on and a lot to unpack, but maybe we'll just have a kind of an abbreviated 15-20 minute talk about this one, and we can look into what happened with Joy to the World. So we see the Doctor showing up in a robe in a time hotel and grabbing drinks for two, unbeknownst to him, or just out of habit. And then when he's called out on it, he realizes he only needs the one. And we realize he's in a rather fantastic hotel at Christmas time, a hotel with access to pretty much anywhere in the universe through time, or anywhere on Earth through time. It's the old notion of the cross-time saloon. If you remember reading, Spider Robinson had the cross-time saloon. And a number of other authors have had this kind of conceit throughout the years, whether it's Michael Moorcock and the Hall of Many Worlds. We even saw it within the first Doctor Strange movie, that idea of multiple portals and multiple realms. But what was your overall impression of Joy to the World?
For Ncudi's second Christmas special, I thought that this one was better than the last. And again, I think the previous season's Christmas special just had a lot of kind of place setting to do. So we had to introduce Ncudi as the Doctor on his own, and we had to introduce this Ruby character. So it had a lot of other narrative work to do, whereas this one felt much more like the Doctor Who Christmas special. I think, in terms of the specials that have happened since the new series launched, it would definitely be in the top half for me. Could even be in the top 3. I'm a big fan of the I forget the name of the episode, but it's based on The Shepherd, which is a story about World War II pilots flying over the channel and following a star, basically, which is the Christmas star. Doctor Who does a version of that, which is really well done. But in terms of Christmas specials, this definitely feels much more like a Doctor Who Christmas special, which often you get new people because usually the Christmas special is either in between companions, or the companions are somewhat occupied in some way. So it's always the kind of thing where the Christmas special is a standalone. It's new people. You get to see the Doctor in a new environment, and then of course you get the connection to Christmas. And I thought that all of those elements were really on point in the way that this episode came together. So getting the Nicola Coughlan Joy character was fun. I actually appreciated Anita Ben from Sandringham, Stephanie DeWally's character. Very well done, and again, great chemistry with Ncudi. I thought throughout the side characters, Trev was fantastic. Just the layer of sadness and tragedy he just adds to the episode when he goes into that bar, and he comes to the realization that he's failed the Doctor. Was just fantastic to add weight to it. And seeing Jonathan Arris, he played the hotel manager, was fantastic. The hotel manager, of course, very small part in the episode. He's the Silurian, which are the original inhabitants of Earth. That's a different episode of Doctor Who for sure. But he is an actor who's been in the Doctor Who universe a number of different times in a number of different characters. So seeing him, hearing him, of course, immediately I recognized the voice. So, realizing that it was him in particular, I thought was nice to see him back.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't have that history, but I did appreciate that there was definitely some gravitas to the appearance of him. Now, and you mentioned Trev, who I thought was actually a standout character and had a really strong redemption moment later on in the episode, and that was fun. I think there was a few main themes that were coming through in this one, and I think one of the things that I saw like briefly online, I was trying to avoid spoilers for it, but it's really an episode of Doctor Who that's addressing what we, and we as in the collective here, have been dealing with since 2020. And Joy's particular role within this episode and how she had to deal with her mother and COVID and the whole situation there where she was talking to her mother through an iPad, I think really, yeah, it lent a lot of weight to like the episode. And I hear what you're saying earlier on about how it's kind of moored in time and a date, but it seems like it's really kind of essential to discuss this one through this lens, whether it's through a mirror or a lens, however you want to look at it, through this framing of Doctor Who, how we can kind of process some of what's gone on over the last 4 to 5 years. And as we mentioned in the previous podcast episode to this one, that's you had mentioned how this is one of the things that sci-fi really allows us to do and does well, is that processing. So yeah, I thought that was a fantastic little bit as like an overarching theme. What did you take away from it there?
Yeah, I thought that was one of the more interesting elements of this particular Christmas special. Because again, it's often the case, especially in a show about time and space, that the episodes seem kind of timeless. Even though they're set in a specific context, that context can be used to kind of tell a story that's timeless in any particular place. Whereas this one, Joy's character, you need to have experienced what it was like to have gone through COVID. So I'm interested to see in the years to come how this episode ages for those people who were too young to remember, or those people who weren't, really forming a lot of key memories while this COVID stuff was going on. And then for the rest of us, I thought, and this is, a particularly very British thing, the anger, not that the anger post-COVID is particularly British, but the specific pointed anger at the betrayal of, government officials telling people to follow these very strict rules when at the same time they weren't. And they were living their, kind of luxurious lives with, their wine fridges and all that. I thought that line from Nicola Coughlan landed really, really heavily for me in terms of putting a finger on post-COVID rage in a way that doesn't push us down any particular path in terms of the various rabbit holes that you can fall into or the various tricky conversations that now come up post-COVID, where, again, this is a once-in-a-century thing. It happened once at the beginning of the 20th century, now once at the beginning of the 21st century. It seems as though, looking back now at those 2 years, we really didn't know much more of what to do this time around than we did 100 years prior. So, I think it's okay if people are a little bit angry about that. And her anger in particular, I think, is the most distilled version of it. The person who followed the rules and really did lose something. And this is the kind of thing that, I think it's going to resonate for not just those people who had loved ones who may have passed during COVID or had loved ones who had gone through the ventilator phase and those really rough things, but, those people who have missed all sorts of things. So again, those kids who, missed out on a couple of years of socialization at school that, are really key to their development. And, the knock-on effects of that are going to be unfolding for decades as those kids move on and have trouble with various social situations. Or, a lot of the students I get in my classes now are the ones who graduated while COVID was happening. So those moments that you only get once in your life of going to your senior prom or walking across the stage for your first graduation, these are things that they'll never ever have because they were taken away for the safety of everybody, according to authorities. And whether or not those steps needed to be taken, or kind of whether or not the people in power were working from the best information, is the thing that is debatable and the thing that starts a lot of thorny conversations. But regardless of how you see kind of what happened during COVID, the effects of what happened during COVID are certainly something that our feelings are valid about. And I think that the show did a really interesting way of getting us there, and reminded me, and I could not think of an example from this show in particular, but reminded me of that wave of indelible marks that happened in pop culture in the moment post 9/11. So the blowing up of Florida in Star Trek, or the dramatic shift of CTU in Fox's 24. These moments that got kind of appended onto narratives that had already been kind of conceived before the moment, that mark those forever.
It's a point well taken that we haven't necessarily seen enough of them. There's a couple like concurrent things that are happening within both pop culture and society. Like when you look at 9/11, that was a very acute, singular thing, right? It happened, and there was some fallout over the weeks, whereas the pandemic and the pandemic response lasted much longer, and so there was a lot more of a disruption to the regular production of media. And then during that, or near the tail end of that, we also had the strikes in 2023 with respect to Hollywood, also halting and disrupting production. So there's a lot going on there that would, whereas normally we'd kind of see those elements showing up within our media, some of the stuff that's been put out has been in production for a long time, or has been in the can, or we haven't had enough time in the production cycle for that stuff to actually, be created. And we talked in the previous podcast episode about the idea of the serial nature of production, having those filler episodes or episodes of the week where if something drastic occurs, you can, during the production course of a season, if it's 20 plus episodes, you can fit in something that's a direct response. Whereas a tightly planned 8 or 10 or 12 episode season, where it's all about an overarching narrative that you're kind of trying to stick to, you don't necessarily have the flexibility to integrate that commentary into, say, the current production season, even though it's been out for some time, and it may have to come down the road in season 1 or season 2, or in a Christmas special, much like we're seeing now. So yeah, there's definitely like the political economy or production economy kind of elements that go into play about that I think we see reflected in Doctor Who, and the nature of production for Doctor Who doing the annual specials allows them that opportunity to kind of get in there. In much the same way we can see with like a South Park is able to, just the way they do production allows them to be one of the most responsive shows for fictionalized narratives on television. A few other media properties have that ability outside of, say, a newscast or a comedy cast, right? Anywho, there was a few other elements there, but I think the other thing I noted from what you're saying, that there was really this response we saw with how Joy was dealing with it, is that the Doctor Who episode kind of presented us with two options, two paths. And the one path was seen with the briefcase holders, how when they reappeared at the end, they were all kind of dealing with, being one with the starseed and, kind of becoming in that as being children of that starseed. And then the other one was the 15th Doctor spending a year in the hotel and learning how to live one day after the next. And this is a theme that tied back to the specials in 2023, where the 14th Doctor learned how to live in time, how to become embodied, day-to-day serially as the rest of us live our lives, and not bouncing all over the place. And for a year, we see Ncuti Gatwa kind of calm down, chill out. You just got to get through it. There's no other way. You got to close the loop. And, the way to deal with the loop is to get through the loop, to draw it until it kind of tightens and disappears. And I thought that was a really effective response. And we'll, I think, see some more of that forth. But in my notes, I kind of say this is how the 15th Doctor became chill. Because when we had that introduction of him to the 14th Doctor, he had a similar message. I seem to recall that, he told David Tennant's 14th Doctor that, you need to... We noted that it was a markedly different kind of chill Doctor that we were finally encountering. And that there was a way to a way that this Doctor became chill. And I think we're seeing an element of that here in this episode. So, yeah.
I liked that, again, the way Ncuti is presented in the beginning is that he is the post-trauma Doctor. That, all of the Doctors that we've had in the new series up until him, up until the Bi-Generation, it is very much, a Doctor that is dealing with the trauma of the Time War, which is really kind of a post-Cold War Doctor. So he's presented first as this doctor who kind of has no baggage. And then, right from the beginning of the Christmas episode, we actually get a reminder, well, actually, no, every doctor has baggage, and they all have kind of the same baggage, which is this kind of lonely doctor trope. It reminds me of the Freddie Mercury the soundtrack from Highlander, Who Wants to Live Forever, which is this notion that, being alive as long as he has been or she is really the loneliest thing. And this is the biggest challenge the doctor has to face constantly, is this idea that, they will never be anything but alone at the end of the day because the companions leave or they get trapped or something happens to them. So the return to the lonely doctor trope, I thought, was really welcome here. So this is something that we've seen from every doctor in the new era. Eccleston, it's really his introduction, is that he's the lonely doctor when he meets Rose. For Tennant, I think it happens at a number of times, but probably the most pronounced is the Runaway Bride, where we first meet Donna. It's when he first meets Donna, and he's left his first companion at that point. He's very much, it's the Eeyore Tennant. He's very depressed. He doesn't want to hang out with other people. He doesn't want to take on another companion because they always leave him, which is the kind of depression. And then Matt Smith, I think that you get his in kind of two doses. The first comes from The Beast Below, which is one of my favorite episodes of the show entirely, because it is where the companion actually works out that the doctor is lonely, and that it is his loneliness that drives his kindness, that makes him want to help people. Because if you're the very last one and you have nobody else in the galaxy, then what can you be other than kind to other beings you encounter? So it's a trope that we see every doctor play with at some point, and I know I'm leaving out Capaldi and Whittaker here, which both have dealt with the same trope at various points, but seeing Ncuti do it, and the way Ncuti does it, again, is very different than other doctors. So the idea that he walks out with 2 cups, and then Trev encounters him, and he has that moment of realization that, Ncuti seems to be the kind of doctor that is so wrapped up in whatever he's doing that he can forget all of the stuff that has happened to him. So it's not that he's post-trauma. It's that he's able to dissociate from his trauma, and then it will come back to him. So walking out with 2 cups is that, trauma reasserting itself, even though he doesn't necessarily seem to be acknowledging it in the way he walks out of the TARDIS. And then just the automatic nature of putting on the coat, grabbing the Sonic, and leaving, and not knowing, like openly questioning himself, why am I putting on my coat? What did I see? Which is, I think, one of the interesting things that Ncuti's bringing to the role is that it's almost as though the Doctor is a thing that's in him, and it's doing its own thing. It's solving problems. It's moving on to the next adventure, even though he's kind of being dragged along. He's very much the passenger in that moment, which I thought was quite clever in this particular episode.
It was an episode filled with clever moments and clever elements. I mean, just the seating within the Time Hotel as like a site of infinite possibilities, going through these doors. Oh, here's Mesopotamia, here's Pisa, it's a straight up and down. And the tent on the Himalaya, and the way to connect all these various elements together. So we get some fantastic points, and some very British ones as well, seated throughout. But I guess that is the nature of Doctor Who. For me, I think also was the callback near the end of the episode to Valengard, which showed up in Boom during the season as kind of like this corporation that was, interested in machinery of war, and they're the ones that have empowered this briefcase and the various technologies within it to create this seed that will start this reaction. And so having that callback to not just that, but also like the digital, for lack of a better term, like the avatars or the representations of everybody who had been disintegrated or became part of the starseed, was a mirror of the technology that we saw in that earlier episode within Boom. So I thought that callback was really effective, that we are seeing a bit of that continuity from the season into like the Christmas specials as well. I appreciated that connection.
Yeah, it almost seems as though they're building Valengard to be kind of a new Doctor Who villain, and I have to be honest, I'm not sure if Valengard is something that's popped up in the old Doctor Who. I've watched quite a bit of it, but not every single minute, and I can't remember all of it. So it could be that this is something that's popped up in Doctor Who before, but it definitely feels as though this run of the Doctor, Valengard, is going to be something we come back to maybe another couple of times as we go, which I like. I like that kind of that binding agent when we see it unfold in a Doctor Who narrative.
Yeah, and I don't know if the Time Hotel has ever appeared before, but again, I feel like we're going to see that back as well, especially with the way we ended with the hotel manager taking on the position, or sorry, the hotel manager from Earth taking on the position within the Time Hotel. And so I don't know if it'll just be a Xmas special conceit or if it will be something in the mainline season. But again, we have that callback and that looking forward to the possibilities that this particular locale presents itself. So yeah, fantastic there.
It is nice. They don't do it often, but they will introduce alternative ways of traveling through time every once in a while. So there's a time authority, and they have little wristwatches that basically allow them to jump around in time, or other characters that'll slip somehow into the time vortex. So I thought that the Time Hotel was a cute little invention. It's very Moffat-esque in that it's boundless possibility and minimal explanation. So everything we know about Doctor Who and paradoxes and crossing your own time stream just gets suspended because this is a physical place somewhere, and all these holes in time just go to their places, which I thought was cute. And it gave us, I thought, some of the funnest moments in the actual episode itself. So the ham and cheese toasty sequence, seeing that twice, I think is one of the things that Doctor Who often does quite well. And I think it does it twice in this episode. And I have to give credit, Ellie Littlechild at What Culture was the person who I saw first present this kind of analysis. But the idea of seeing something from one perspective when you don't know what's happening, and then coming back to it once you do know what's happening, I think happens twice in this episode, and both times are just deliciously fun. So the beginning sequence, we don't really know what's going on, and then we see him grab the ham and cheese toasty and the latte and go and do it. The second time we see it, we now have that context. And the second time is the bootstrapping scene, of course, where we have the two doctors talking to Nicola Coughlan, which is, I thought, was a hilarious way of getting around the problem. And Moffat does this quite often in his writing, and some people find it frustrating. I usually find it quite delightful. How did the Doctor figure out what the code was? He heard him tell himself what the code was. Like, he didn't ever figure it out. Like, he just waited a year and then burst in and told her what the code was.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Overall, yeah, wonderful episode. So I'm looking forward to getting together and talking about this one again in 2025. We will see what the year ahead brings us. But again, let's just wrap it up there. Any final thoughts quickly before we go?
The last thing that kind of struck me about the episode was the notion that we got both a why and a how. So there's always kind of a binding agent in a Doctor Who story. And in this one, of course, the Christmas star becomes that binding agent. The fact that everybody sees the star in that one scene at the end, and they're all given hope by looking at the Christmas star and then finding out that it is the star that guided the three wise men at the very end of the episode. Brilliant little reveal. But we also had the how of it, which was the Time Hotel. It was kind of the first time, for me at least, where we've really kind of smashed those two together. We've got this binding agent, but we've also got this vehicle for actually making it happen. So going back to the dinosaur and letting it cook until Bethlehem and all of these sorts of things was kind of a neat little breakdown of the MacGuffin for the whole episode, which I thought was kind of fun.
Yeah. I like Trev coming back and kind of helping out there and fulfilling his quest as well. So a little bit of redemption arc there, and I thought that was enjoyable. We were introduced to a number of people that could be in a different season companion for Doctor Who, but they all did fantastic parts with their role in this one. So overall, once again, thank you for joining us, Dr. Aiden Buckland, and we will talk to you soon about other things, I'm sure. You take care and be well, all right?
Thanks for having me. Have a Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too. Once again, thank you for joining us for these special episodes of the Implausipod. I'm your host, Dr. Implausible, and our guest has been Dr. Aiden Buckland. As we've talked about the 2024 Doctor Who season, this is our final episode for 2024, so we're looking forward to 2025 with some new material for you. In January, we have 3 episodes on deck for you that we were hinting at in episodes 38 and 39, as we look at what roads are for, what world models are, and what cyber ascension is. We also have a couple media episodes coming up, with a return to Appendix W, as well as a look at Andor Season 1 before the launch of Andor Season 2 in March, and maybe, just maybe, an interview or two as well. 2024 was a great year for us with 18 episodes released, and we're looking forward to at least doing that much in 2025, so we hope you stay with us. Episodes are released under a Creative Commons 4.0 share-alike license, and while there is no cost for you, there is a Buy Me a Coffee link included with every episode, which goes towards our hosting costs and server fees. There's also no advertising on this show, but if you like what you're hearing, please share it with a few friends and help us grow through word of mouth. Once again, it's been fantastic having you here with us. Have a safe and happy 2025 and a New Year's Eve. Take care and have fun.